We just got back from 11 nights in Iceland and Greenland. Hey cruisers, welcome back to Cruise Report. Today we're going to talk about an expedition cruise that we just got off of about a week ago. And this was a 10-night cruise with one pre-cruise night. And I got to tell you, it was pretty amazing. So you may want to stay tuned for this one because this is something really out of the ordinary. You may or may not be familiar with expedition cruising. Heck, you may not be familiar with us and Cruise Report. We've been doing this for over 22 years. This was our 149th cruise, and we've reviewed every one of them. So we've been doing this a while. We've also done quite a few expedition cruises. We've been to Antarctica twice. We've been to the Galapagos twice. We've been to the Chilean, how do you say that? Chilean fjords. We've been to the sub-Antarctic islands, someplace that only about less than 1,000 people a year even go there. I mean, it's a very remote place. So we've done the whole expedition thing. And this was with Swan Hellenic, and we have sailed with Swan Hellenic. This version of Swan Hellenic we sailed with last year on SH Diana through the Panama Canal. And I'm going to just be real honest with you. When we booked this cruise, this was kind of on Ricky's bucket list, going to Greenland, and she likes doing the Arctic thing. And honestly, I had low expectations or very little expectations. Turns out it far exceeded my expectations. I think it even exceeded Ricky's expectations. So first of all, this video, I'm going to just touch on some of the high points. I've made myself some notes here because at my age, I can't remember everything I want to say. So I want to make sure I get in the important stuff. And if you want more details about this cruise and about the ship, please go to our website, CruiseReport.com. We have a full review up there. I will put a link in the description of this video directly to that review. We also have a daily blog where each day we kind of recorded everything we did on the cruise. And so I think you'll enjoy that. So check that out as well. And if you haven't done so already, please subscribe to our YouTube channel. And don't forget, if you end up liking this video, make sure you give it a thumbs up. That really does help our YouTube rankings. So let's talk a little bit about expedition cruises, because they're not like your traditional. When you think of a cruise, you think of a big ship with a lot of people. You think of casinos and production shows and all kinds of activities during the day, and belly flop contests and a big swimming pool where a bunch of people are in there drinking and having a good time. That's not an expedition cruise, okay? Expedition cruising is a lot different. It's more adventure oriented. It's more destination oriented. The ships tend to be much smaller than your traditional cruise ships, and usually will use what are called zodiacs, these little inflatable boats. They hold maybe 10 or 12 guests at a time, and they'll usually transport you from the ship to a shoreline, maybe in an island or somewhere in Antarctica. It's the shoreline. And you do what's called a wet landing. Now, a wet landing means you're stepping off the Zodiac into maybe 6 to 10 or 12 inches of water. So this requires you to have a certain amount of gear. We'll talk about that here in a second. You need to have waterproof pants, or what they call water pants. With all my 148 previous cruise experience and all my expedition cruise experience. Completely forgot to pack my water pants, and so did Ricky, by the way. So that you never get to the point where you are perfect at packing, obviously. And fortunately for us, there were some crew members that had an extra pair. The doctor loaned Ricky her water pants, and one of the expedition team people also loaned me a pair of water pants, which fit perfectly, and they work great. So that was very nice. But anyway, these wet landings, you basically have to have a parka, because it usually in colder temperatures. They do provide you with a parka on Swan Hellenic, very warm. It also has a little puffy jacket liner that can come out. You can unzip it. We actually brought ours home with us. The parkas are yours to keep. You can keep the parkas. They also provide muck boots. Now the muck boots come up very high, almost to your knee, and that's so that when you step off in the water, you don't get water all over your whatever you're wearing under your water pants. The water pants are supposed to be worn over your jeans or over your other layers, and then those get tucked down inside of those muck boots, and then the waterproof pants go outside the muck boot so that the water never gets down into your clothing. That's kind of the wet landing experience. Usually, sometimes it's on slippery rocks, and these muck boots are really good. They have really good sticky, a lot of tread on these soles, so they do a good job. Now, the muck boots are not yours to keep. They stay on the ship, but they're yours to use while you're on board. The other thing to consider about an expedition cruise is you need to be in pretty good health to do this. In fact, Swan Hellenic even requires that they receive a release signed by your doctor. And this release will state that the doctor believes you are in good enough physical condition to go on this expedition cruise. And the reason for that, at least on this cruise, when you're leaving out of Iceland and you're sailing to Greenland, there are no facilities in Greenland. There's no cities, there's no towns. You're basically, to quote a phrase, you're in the middle of nowhere. And so if you had a medical event or something like that, it probably would not be a good thing. So they do have a doctor on board. They do have a nurse on board. They have a medical clinic, but there's limited resources to deal with serious conditions. So Swan Hellenic wants to make sure you're in good enough health to do this expedition. Okay, so let me talk first about the pre-cruise. We flew into Reykjavik from Dallas-Fort Worth. We actually flew to Chicago, and then from Chicago to Reykjavik on United. Nothing really special to say about the flight. Now, Swan Hellenic did provide guests with one pre-cruise night hotel stay before we embarked the ship, and that was at a Courtyard by Marriott there it's in Keflavik, which is about 45 miles from Reykjavik. So it's not like you're in the middle of the town for that pre-cruise day. You'd have to get a pretty expensive taxi if you wanted to go into town. But we were so tired from jet lag, we didn't care. We basically got to the hotel about 9:30 in the morning. They let us check in early. There was a hospitality desk there at the hotel from Swan Hellenic telling us what we would be doing the next day. They told us to be downstairs at a certain time, have our luggage downstairs at a certain time. They loaded the next day, they loaded all of our luggage up on the ship or on the truck and then took it to the ship. And then we had a couple of motor coaches that took us to Reykjavik. The ship did not begin embarkation until about, I think it was scheduled for 2 o'clock. We actually were able to get on at 1:30. But so we had time. We left Keflavik at about 10 o'clock, maybe 11 o'clock in the morning. And so it took 45 minutes. So we had a couple hours in Reykjavik to look around, walk around, do a little shopping, grab a cup of coffee, have lunch if you want to. You've got some time to do some exploring, and they drop you off in a location that you can see the ship where it's docked from that point, and you can also see the town. So you can walk into town. We walked into town. We did a little shopping, not much, and had a cup of coffee, and then we went, and by 1:30 we were able to embark. They check your passport. You get on board the ship. It's a simple embarkation. Couldn't be easier. This is one advantage of small ship cruising, is embarkation is a piece of cake. So we got on board the ship, checked in, and that was embarkation. If you want to know more about the embarkation, make sure you read our full review on CruiseReport.com. Let me tell you a little bit about the ship. Now, the ship only holds 153 people. Like I say, it's a small ship. And it has 123 crew. That's a very high crew to guest ratio, by the way. So service levels on these expedition ships tends to be much higher than it is on the big cruise ships. So you will notice that difference right away. The tonnage of this ship is only around, 10,000 and change. It is fully stabilized. It does have stabilizers, and the stabilizers which come out from the hull of the ship, if there's any rocking motion, or I should say rolling motion, it will help mitigate that so that you get a much smoother ride when you're out in the open seas. It doesn't do anything for the pitching. If this is the ship, if it's going up and down, front to aft, it doesn't do anything for that, but it does do for this rolling motion left to right. So if you are prone to seasickness or motion sickness, I would recommend, number one, take medication. They do provide medication on the ship if you need it. Number two, book a stateroom that is as low on the ship as possible, like on deck 4 or 5, and also book a stateroom toward the middle of the ship. There's less motion low and in the middle. If you get out there on the ends of the ship, on the bow or the stern, that's where you're getting more of that fulcrum effect and the motion. So that's just my little tip for you. However, I will say this cruise going from Iceland to Greenland, which was the day at sea, that's where you would most likely experience the motion. And going to Greenland was extremely smooth. We didn't feel the ship move at all. Once we were in Greenland, it's mostly inland waterways and fjords, very calm waters. We didn't feel any motion until the next to last day of the cruise, when we're coming back to Iceland from Greenland. We did get a little bit of that pitching up and down motion. Ricky and I both took some of the medication they provided at the reception desk, and we were good to go for the rest of the day. It didn't last that long, and it wasn't that bad. It was certainly, we've had a lot worse motion on much, much larger ships. So I wouldn't be too concerned about that. Now this ship, this is SH Vega. This is one of 3 Swan Hellenic ships. She has one sister ship that's identical called SH Minerva, and then she has one sister ship that's a little bit larger, SH Diana. That's the one we were on last year. This one is the smaller, just like Minerva, and it was wonderful, very nice. I was actually on this ship in 2022 or 3 when it first came out. I can't remember. It might have been 22. I was on there. I was invited on a 3-day media trip to see the ship as a member of the media, influencer, or whatever you want to call it. And they hosted us for 3 nights. Just a cruise to nowhere out of, I think, Halifax. I think we went from Halifax to Boston or something like that. Anyway, so when we got on board the ship this time, I was familiar with the ship. Of course, it's so small. You can't get lost on this ship. But I was very pleased to see that the ship didn't look like it had any signs of wear at all. I mean, it still looked brand new. It looked as good as it did when I saw it in 2022. There was no visible rust. The furnishings all looked good. The carpeting all looked fresh and new. Everything really looked spotless and clean. Great, housekeeping and maintenance on the ship, obviously. So very, very impressed with that. Now, one thing I will talk about, and again, if you want to know everything there is to know about the ship, from our perspective, check our review on CruiseReport.com because I go into much more detail. But the main venue of the ship is the observation lounge on deck 7 forward. This is where you meet every day for a daily briefing and a recap of what went on that day and update you on what's coming up the next day. This is a kind of a typical thing on expedition cruises. Usually expeditions, they'll have like a daily recap or a briefing to let you know what to expect the next day, whether it be weather, zodiacs, wet landings, what time the excursions are going to be. And typically on an expedition, and it was the case with this one, you will do 2 excursions per day. And your excursions are all included. There are some optional excursions you can pay for. I'll talk a little bit more about that. We did do one on this cruise, but there's always something to do included in the price of your cruise. And they generally that revolves around the zodiacs and a wet landing somewhere, or sometimes you just get in the zodiac and you sail around and look at glaciers or icebergs, and the views in Greenland and in Iceland are just unbelievable. So this observation lounge is kind of a bar. It's a lounge. It's very comfortable, nice seating. There's a big screen in the front. You can go in there all day long if you want and just have a cocktail. All your drinks are included on this ship. It's all inclusive as far as liquor, soft drinks. Observation lounge, great place. And then there's a couple other venues we'll talk about later. Let me tell you a little bit about the accommodations on board SH Vega. Now, we noticed this on SH Diana when we were on a year ago. The accommodations on this ship are as nice or nicer than any other expedition ship we've been on, and they're nicer than a lot of other cruise ships we've been on. I'm talking about even luxury cruise ships. They really did a bang-up job on the staterooms. They're beautiful. They're very spacious. They have tons of storage. You will not find a stateroom on any other cruise ship that has this level of storage. Even their regular standard balcony staterooms, not only do they have a huge closet where you can put all your hanging clothes, but they have this entire wall of cabinets right in front of the bed. And they're pretty deep cabinets. You can put a lot of stuff in there. And every stateroom also has a little electric fireplace. It's pretty cool. And when you come in from the cold outside, like in the Arctic or Antarctica, it's kind of nice. It really kind of gives you that warm feeling when you come out. I've never seen this on any other ship. They have this little, and it has the little crackling fire sound going with it. Of course, you can turn it all off if you want to. It's all electronic, but it's pretty cool. It's a pretty neat feature. But the accommodations are as good as you're going to find on any other ship. Very, very nice. Good service. They do service the staterooms twice a day. So your stateroom attendant will come in the morning and clean up, and then will come in the evening for like a turn down type service to refresh your towels or whatever you need. That's something that's disappearing on a lot of cruise lines. So anyway, that's just a little bit about the accommodations. We really love the staterooms. Let me talk a little bit about entertainment, because if you're used to cruising, you think, oh boy, there's going to be a production show at night, or we'll go to lounge shows, we'll go to the casino. Well, not on an expedition ship. It doesn't work that way. What you have though is Renee, in our case, playing the piano in the observation lounge. So after dinner, if you want to sit there and have a cocktail, they don't really have a dance floor, but you could, I guess you could get up and dance. But you could sit there and listen to some nice music and have a cocktail. On an expedition cruise, you are out during the day. So in the morning, you're going out, you're walking on trails or hiking or on a rocky beach, whatever it is. And then you do that again in the afternoon. Usually you come back to the ship for lunch, and then you go out again maybe at 2 or 3 o'clock in the afternoon. You do a second excursion in the zodiac. Maybe you're looking at glaciers. By the end of the day, you don't really, you just want to relax. You want to have a nice dinner and relax. So you have this observation lounge where you can sit and relax. You can go to the club lounge. There's another lounge at the back of the ship. You could go sit out by the pool. The ship does have a pool on the aft deck on deck 7. So you could go sit, if the weather's nice, you can go sit out by the pool. Now, let's talk about the food and the dining, because that's what everybody wants to know about. What about the food and dining? The majority of the food and dining is in what's called the Swan restaurant, which is on deck 4. And that serves a buffet breakfast and lunch every day. Dinner, on the other hand, is full menu service, full wait staff coming to the table, taking your order, delivering the meals. Dress code on board the ship is casual. On an expedition ship, don't pack a suit. You could pack a sport coat if you want, but I didn't. So you put a shirt with a collar on at night and you're good to go. It's very, very casual on board an expedition ship. So if you like a casual atmosphere, you're going to love expedition cruising. It's really amazing. Meals are served in the Swan restaurant, breakfast, lunch, and dinner, buffet for breakfast and lunch. Now, the only exception to that is on embarkation day, dinner is served buffet style in the Swan restaurant. Every other night after that, it's normal, full-blown table service with a menu that changes every day or every evening. And the menu is pretty extensive. On these menus, we had at least 4 different choices for entrees. There's an always available menu where you can choose a steak or chicken or pasta or a fish that's available every night. Also, the Caesar salad is available every night. And spoiler alert, it is the best Caesar salad you're going to find on any cruise line or cruise ship. And like I say, this is our 149th cruise. I think I know a little bit about it because I think I've eaten a Caesar salad on every cruise we've been on. This one is the best, hands down. As far as the rest of the food quality, we found it all to be very good. Some things were just really standout good. Everything else was just, I would say, good, very good. The other places to dine, there's a thing called the Club Lounge, which they will have like a continental breakfast. Maybe some muffins, cookies. They might have some yogurt. They might have some meats and cheeses and things like that. Croissants, perhaps. There's also a little coffee machine up there in the Club Lounge. 24 hours a day, you can go up and make yourself a cappuccino or a cafe latte or hot chocolate, whatever you want. That's where I would go every morning to do my computer blogging. I would go to Club Lounge, grab some coffee, and sit there and work on the computer. As far as the pool grill, there's a third venue where you can dine. There's a pool grill just outside of Club Lounge on deck 7, and they serve lunch there. Only lunch, no dinner. Same with the Club Lounge. They do have lunch in the Club Lounge, a light lunch, and then they'll have pool grills where you get your burgers, your chicken sandwich. They might have a grilled salmon. I think they have a different seafood every day at the pool grill. Pretty good little menu there at the pool grill. You can eat outside if you want to, if the weather's good, or you can bring your pool grill meal indoors to the Club Lounge. And at lunchtime, they do have a waiter service, so they'll come around and take your order for the pool grill if you want to sit indoors. That's very nice. They also offer a red and a white wine every day, a different red and white wine every day at lunch and dinner. And they change it up. And we found the wines to be good. We have a special Riesling that we like, hard to find on a lot of cruises, but they actually had it on this ship. Cherry, the wine stewardess, would bring us our favorite wine every day. After the first day, she knew what we liked, and she'd automatically bring it to us at lunch or dinner to offer it to us. Great service, by the way. The staff and the crew on the ship are just incredible. They were amazing. I don't think we've ever had a staff or crew this attentive and personable, and everybody seems like they're really having a good time and they're real happy. As far as room service, they do have 24-hour room service. They have a room service menu, And you can also order off the Swan restaurant menu from 7 to 9. Whenever they're serving dinner, you can order off their menu too and have it brought to your suite or your stateroom. I did that one night. I did have room service one night. It was absolutely delicious. I think I got the food within like 10 minutes after placing the order. I was amazed. I had the Caesar salad and I had this chicken skewer. Really good. And hot. The food got there very hot. Now, we did not do breakfast room service. We just don't eat breakfast that often on a cruise. We always eat breakfast on the day of disembarkation. For some reason, it's just a tradition. We usually go down and have breakfast before we get off the ship. The breakfast buffet, I'll go back. I'm backing up a little bit in the Swan restaurant. The breakfast buffet is very extensive. They always have scrambled eggs. They always have bacon. They always have a sausage. It might be a different sausage each day. And they always have a ton of breads. They'll have pastries, all kinds of breakfast pastries. The bread on this ship and on this cruise was incredible. They bake all their own bread on board. We found the breads to be excellent, just really, really good quality bread. We also thought the soups were all good. For some reason, a lot of cruise lines really struggle with soup. So I usually judge the dining quality by bread and soup. If the bread's good and the soup's good, usually everything else is going to be good. And the soup and the bread on this cruise were good. Now, we're not big dessert eaters, but they do have lots of different options at lunch and dinner with different kinds of desserts. Now, what they will do, even though you're dining in the Swan restaurant in the evening and for lunch, if the weather is good, they'll move everything out to the pool deck. And we were lucky on this cruise. We had very good weather on this cruise. And I think 3 different days for lunch, they moved the lunch buffet out to the pool deck. So you could eat outside or you could bring it into the club lounge if you want to sit inside. But you can sit out in this incredible environment on the back of the ship with the pool right there and really enjoy your lunch there. They did this for dinner time a couple of times as well. They even moved dinner service out to the pool deck. And on the last night, they have like this big poolside barbecue. It's a buffet, and it was really amazing. They did this on SH Diana as well. So this might be something they do or try to do if the weather permits on every cruise. I'm not sure. Don't quote me on that. But it was really nicely done. So that is the food and dining. I don't think you're going to be disappointed in the food and dining. There is no specialty dining that you have to pay extra for. Everything's included. Okay, now let me talk real quick about the staff and the crew. First, it starts at the top. The captain, probably the most personable, friendly captain we've ever sailed with. He invited us up to the bridge one day. We got to do a bridge tour. I think all the guests get to do a bridge tour if they sign up for it. He took the time to answer questions. He's always happy. He's always out around the ship, shaking people's hands and greeting people. And you sense that from the top down, this crew and this staff are just really having a good time. They're enjoying themselves. They like what they're doing. And it really makes a big difference in the experience that you have as a guest. If the crew is happy, happy crew, happy ship, happy customers. I mean, everybody just seemed to be having a great time. Now, you don't have a quote-unquote cruise staff like you do on the big ships. So you don't have people running around doing trivia and all this kind of stuff. What you do have on an expedition is an expedition team. And I think we had 10 or 11 on the expedition team. And these are people who take you out on the zodiacs. They're there to answer questions. A lot of them have a background in science. They're all very environmentally aware and oriented. And they're very astute when it comes to expedition cruising and just this type of wilderness and wildlife. You'll have somebody that's an expert on birds. You'll have somebody that's an expert on polar bears. You have somebody that's expert on whales. And they'll give lectures throughout the cruise on these various topics, which are also very educational and very interesting. And the expedition team, we've had these on every expedition we've been on with other cruise lines. We've always found the expedition teams to be good. And Swan Hellenic, no exception. They are just exceptional, exceptionally nice, very pleasant, very helpful, very qualified, in my opinion. And when you get off in Greenland, in some of these places, there may be polar bears. Ricky and I didn't see any, but some other groups did. But what they do, the expedition team, they position expedition team people with rifles to protect the guests in case, hungry bear comes at you. You got to do something. But nevertheless, they've got people positioned on the perimeter of the area you're going to be visiting, just on the lookout with binoculars to make sure there's no polar bears getting close enough to be a danger. So that gives you a sense of security, and you don't have to worry about that. The expedition, like I said, the expedition team people, they drive the Zodiacs. There's always someone or 2 or 3 expedition team people, team members there to help you get on and off the Zodiac, because sometimes you're stepping off on a shore with water and the rocks can be slippery, or the beach can be slippery, or deep sand, and they'll stand there and help every guest get off and make sure you've got your footing before you go ashore, so that you're always every step. And same thing when you're getting on the Zodiac. From the ship, from the side of the ship, there's crew members there to make sure they've got you secure so that you get into the Zodiac without any injury or any chance that you're going to fall or anything. So they're very, very attentive and very good about making sure all of the guests are secure in the Zodiac before they just take off and go. And like I said, they conduct lectures, and we found the lectures to be excellent. And they also replay the lectures on demand in your stateroom. So if you don't make it to a lecture, maybe you're in your stateroom taking a nap during a lecture, or you're getting ready for dinner in the shower, you can always go to your stateroom television and any time of the day and watch those lectures replayed. That's a very, very nice little benefit that they do on Swan Hellenic. Let's talk about this particular destination and this itinerary, because as I mentioned earlier, I kind of had low expectations. We have been to Iceland before, and this was many, many years ago, and it was on literally a dump of a ship. I mean, it was probably one of the worst cruise ships we've ever sailed on. The cruise line's out of business now. It couldn't have been more different. This time, it was just complete different experience, and I really think it has to do with the crew and the staff and the captain and the ship itself. It's a nice, new, clean ship, good food. But anyway, the destination, I think, was actually one of the best we've done, especially Greenland. When you get, now we did see some great stuff in Iceland, but I didn't know what to expect from Greenland. I had no idea there were this many glaciers and that they were this big. And we saw these amazing icebergs, and just the scenery and the feeling you get sailing through these areas. I'm going to shut up for a minute and let you enjoy some of what we enjoyed on this cruise. So as you can see, it's really pretty incredible. And the expedition team people will take time in the zodiacs to stop the engine and just let it float when you're next to a glacier and just enjoy the silence of the area. And it's just kind of almost like a spiritual experience. It really is great. So you don't miss having you don't have your cell phone bothering you or distracting you. You don't have your iPad. You don't have your computer. You're just out there in nature. And that's what makes expedition cruising so special. It truly is like a vacation. Ricky and I will get back from some of these cruises that are on the big cruise ships. And after a week or 10 days on some of these big ships, with all the activities and all the functions and all the entertainment, we're worn out. I mean, it's like we're tired. You come back from an expedition feeling more energized and feeling refreshed. That's the word I was looking for. So now, as far as wildlife, on this itinerary, Iceland to Greenland, we saw a lot of birds. I'm not a birder, but a lot of people are really into that. And there was a lady on board one of the expedition team that really knew all about birds, and she would do lectures on this, and she would point them out as we were sailing around. We did see whales, and Ricky and I did a separate optional excursion, a whale watching tour. And honestly, that was the only thing about the entire cruise that we felt like didn't live up to our expectations, because the boat that we went on this excursion, this whale watching boat, it was really too small for the number of people that were on the boat. There wasn't enough deck space. So if you wanted to get out and see whales and get pictures or video, you couldn't because there were just so many people. That was the only disappointment. And then, interestingly, as we were leaving, we saw more humpback whales from the back deck of the cruise ship of Swan Hellenic, of SH Vega, than we did on the whale watching tour. They were closer to us. We could get clear pictures. So ironically, the day we left where we had done the whale watching tour, the port where we had done the whale watching tour, ironically, as we were sailing out, the captain spotted whales. It was right about lunchtime. And he stopped the ship. So you can do that on an expedition ship. Carnival, Royal Caribbean, all these big cruise ships, they're not going to stop the ship. Even in Alaska, if you're on a cruise, they've got to be at the next port at a specific time. They're not going to stop that ship and let you look. Even if there's whales right next to the ship, you're just going to keep going. But this captain stopped the ship for maybe 45 minutes, and there were whales all around our ship, right off the pool deck, right off your balcony, closer than what we had on the whale watching tour. So that was just a bonus. We're sitting there eating lunch out on the pool deck because they had the buffet out there that day, beautiful weather, and here's all these whales. Just amazing, absolutely amazing. And this ship also has, at the very bow, at the very front of the ship, is called the Swan's Nest on deck 6. And that's an area that you can go out, and you're right out there in the very front of the ship. So if you want to do whale watching or sightseeing or get pictures or video, that's a great location to do that. So it was just great. Now, some people did see polar bears. We didn't, but some people did. And the ship's photographer actually was able to get some video and photographs of the polar bears. And then the only other wildlife that I can think of was the musk oxen, which I'd never seen before. And you could see them way off in the distance. You'd have to have a pretty good zoom lens or a pair of binoculars to get a good look at them. None of them got close enough to us where you could get a good look just with your naked eye. But that's kind of the wildlife you see on this trip. I think for us, the highlight were the whales. So what about the demographics of this Swan Hellenic expedition cruise? I was really surprised by this. We saw people on this ship of all ages. There were a few children, actually. There were a few kids, not many, but a few. I'd say 10 and up. And then we had some people in their 20s, we had some people in their 30s. I mean, every range from 20 all the way up to 75 years old, we saw people on this ship. So it was a very wide demographic of people. Now, I would say the average age was probably 50s to 60s. That would have been the average. But we did have some younger people on there, and it was just a great mix of people. So what do I think of Swan Hellenic, SH Vega, and this particular itinerary, Iceland to Greenland? I'm sure they're going to do it next year. You may want to book it now for next year because it's going to fill up fast. This is a very nice itinerary. It's 10 nights. The Courtyard that we stayed at was a very nice hotel. The only downside to it is it's 45 minutes from town, so you don't really get to spend that day exploring Reykjavik. If you were wanting to do that before you go on the ship, you may want to book something in town, right in Reykjavik, especially if you're going in 2 or 3 days early, because you'd just be spending 2 or 3 days basically at the airport. So, but I highly recommend the Courtyard. It's a beautiful hotel. If you're only going to stay one night just to shed off some jet lag, it's fine. If you're going to go in and spend time in Reykjavik before you get on the ship or after you get off the ship, book something in town. That's it for me. I'm telling you everything I know. I highly recommend it. We had a great time. Hey, thanks for joining me today. If you liked the video, please give it a thumbs up. And until I see you on the next Cruise Report Cruise Review, smooth sailing.